For $1,400, you can't get too much better than my personal PC for gaming and video editing. At the time I bought the main components of this PC, they were top-of-the-line consumer-grade chips, meaning back in 2015, late 2015, and very early 2016, the 6700K and the motherboard were brand spanking new, and they still are extremely good performers for what they are. The core of this machine is the Intel Core i7 6700K. Right out of the rather brightly colored box, you get a 4 GHz or 4 billion cycle per second CPU with 4 physical cores and 8 processing threads, meaning that there's 8 channels for data to go through, just meaning it runs more efficiently and can process more data. I personally have overclocked this CPU to 4.4 GHz, a 10% improvement. The motherboard I went with was this MSI Z178 Crate Gaming motherboard. This motherboard is stylish with a nice white and black aesthetic, rock solid, stable, and supports 64 gigs of RAM if I really want to go crazy in the future. I've also put in a standard 16 gigabytes of RAM, not taking advantage of 64 gigs. I don't know if I could take advantage of that amount of RAM, though I wouldn't turn down that much RAM. Really, 8 gigs is all you need for a gaming PC, but the 16 gigabytes makes a massive, massive difference in video editing and some 4K gaming. It can help to have that extra RAM in there to really solidify being able to run the program well, because if you don't have enough RAM, the program just slows down and the game becomes a stubborn mess. The graphics card of this monster machine is the Galax GTX 1070 Hall of Fame Edition. Now this card is all white with a few little light blue LEDs. I wish those were RGB because I would change the colors to something like white or maybe even blue, not that kind of weird baby blue color. This card is really aimed toward 1440p or 2K gaming, but it can easily handle 1080p at over 100 frames per second, making it perfect for high refresh rate 1080p monitors, or maybe a 75Hz 1440p monitor. Now this card does begin to struggle a little bit when it comes to 4K gaming because it has to crunch 8 million pixels per frame, so if you multiply that by the ideal 60 frames per second, that's a ridiculous number of frames. The power supply is a Thermaltake Smart 650 watt 80 plus bronze power supply. Really, it just supplies all the voltage that I need to run that graphics card and that CPU. I don't have any room to upgrade in the future if I want to add another GPU in there and put them into SLI, which I have no plans of doing because I can't really take advantage of that power, because for what I'm doing, really the 1070 was a very good sweet spot. I could have gotten a 1080, but I wouldn't have really needed it. And the case was the Fractal Design Define S. This is the most beautiful case I've ever seen, apart from the very expensive $500 cases. It's the most beautiful looking mid-tower that I've seen. It has a gloriously large side window so I can see everything inside that PC, and it supports a full water cooling loop with a 360mm rad on the top, 360mm rad on the front, and a 240mm rad on the bottom. This case has nothing more than the maximum amount of water cooling support you can get. If you want a water cooler system, this is one of the only mid-towers that I find that would suit a water cooling build. There are others from companies like Fantex, but Fractal Design really nailed this case. But, I forgot to mention the drives. I have a 120 gig SanDisk SSD Plus in there. I got it for $40 at Best Buy on a sale, so I decided why not. It really helps those boot times, but you do run out of storage quite quickly on a 120 gigabyte SSD, so I do have a 1 terabyte hard drive with other programs and other games. That is filling up quickly though with all the video file coming from my D3400 camera, maximum quality at 1080p 60 frames per second as I'm recording this now. So the hard drives do fill up quite quickly. I do have another one in my closet over there. I know that's probably not the best place to put it, but it's on a shelf. It's still in the anti-static bag, so I don't see any real harm. But I will be putting that into my system fairly soon. Maybe I'll vlog that or just kind of make a video on that. But yeah, those are good drives. I have 1 terabyte of good video storage, which is running out quite quickly. So you're probably wondering, how does this system perform? Well, this system crushes 1080p benchmarks, and it does very well at 1440p, where this graphics card is kind of aimed at. And it can play some games at 4K, but it can't handle AAA titles at ultra settings such as Battlefield 4, GTA 5, Maybe Shadow of Mordor. I don't know if it can handle Shadow of Mordor. I've never played them, but I know how it. I know how this card performs in GTA 5, and I do know how this card performs in Battlefield 4. So, without further ado, let's release the benchmarks of these games. Guys, please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy the benchmark section, because it took forever to do. It took me 2 days trying to work around school schedules and all the work that I had to do around my house. It was just very hard to get the time. So if you did like this video, just saying before I end it, please leave a like to show that you want to see more, because it does take a lot of effort to make a video like this. As you can see, this system, for the most part, completely dominated 1080p and 1440p. The only time frame rates in either resolutions came anywhere near 60 was a weird blip in Overwatch, 1080p at ultra settings. It went down to 59 frames per second. You probably saw that on the graph that I put up. But that was a little bit of a micro stutter. It only lasted for a few milliseconds. The only reason I did notice it was because I did have the FPS counter up in the corner of the game. So I did notice it went down to 59. It never went anywhere close to anywhere under 90 or 100. It was pretty pinned the whole time, and there were no signs of CPU bottlenecking, meaning that the graphics card was processing too many frames per the CPU to handle. So you saw a nice increase from 4K to 1440p and a nice increase from 1440p to 1080p. Not as much as I would have liked to see, seeing as I was getting around 50 to 60 frames per second at 4K. I would have liked to see 100 or 120 at 1440p, which I did. And at 1080p, I would have expected to see 200, just from the scaling. But sometimes games don't scale well. Everyone is a little bit different for the benchmarks. I try and do the same map on Overwatch at the same time, but players online do different things, and it sometimes skews the results just a little bit, but they were very cohesive. I did the tests over and over again to make sure. The only thing that ever really changed was the minimum frame rates, because there was that minor little blip, so I decided to keep the benchmarks so I didn't have to create a whole nother set of graphs. During the Firestrikes and Static benchmarks, the system scored in the top 29% of all systems. Gave me that warm fuzzy feeling inside. Don't know that my system is in the top 30% of systems that had run that test. Gives me a good feeling that I did something right for once in my life. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video on my personal PC. I'm very happy with how the system turned out. It was very balanced, it performs great, and it chews through the 1080p 60 frame per second footage that I put through it. I've even tried 4K 60 frame per second video editing, and it was a very cohesive. It was a little bit laggy, but I can't blame the system, because 8 million pixels 60 times per second is a lot. So, thank you guys so much for checking it out. I look forward to seeing how this system performs in 3 or 4 years. Maybe if I become a big tech YouTuber, I can do that in the future. See how the first real system I ever built, I have kind of tinkered with other systems, but I never built one from scratch like I did this one. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how well it performs and how well these Pascal cards hold up against NVIDIA's. I think it's Nova is the next architecture that'll be coming up, hopefully in 2017, late 2017, maybe 2018. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new here, hey, why not leave a like on this video to show that you enjoyed it, because it did take forever to make, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more awesome tech content like this. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.